Welcome to Inside City Hall. I'm your host, Mayor Darrell Seymore, and today our guests are Steve Williams from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Steve Heckathorne from Living Faith Church, and Tom Brown from New Hope Christian Fellowship. Welcome to the show, Tom.
Welcome.
Steve.
Thank you, Mayor. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor.
Glad to have you guys today. Well, it's November. Leaves have turned, fall's in the air, and it's time to get excited about our community fast again. Why don't you guys just share briefly the history of this and what's kind of new or any changes that we're looking forward to this coming year?
You bet. Well, Mayor, as you know, this will be the 4th annual Community Fast. The way it started was a group of people, including Steve and Tom, were part of discussions of what can we do to come together as a community, and that discussion began there and went to city leaders and business leaders, and eventually the idea of a fast was born. And the way the Community Fast works, for those that aren't familiar with it, there's a week set aside each year in November where the mayor and city council issue a proclamation declaring one week as the week of the fast. And citizens are invited to pick any day during that week, fast for 1 or 2 meals, take the money they would have spent on those meals, or more if they're able, and donate it to a common fund. 100% of the monies that are donated go to help local families in need over the holidays. In the first 3 years of the fast, we've raised about $40,000. The people here locally have contributed to help local families in need, and each year it's grown and gotten stronger and more people participated, and we're excited to have the 4th annual fast this year.
Oh, that's exciting. That's exciting. Steve, why don't you share with us just a little bit about involvement with the community, how other people have got involved, as well as, you know, the banks and different things that are happening.
Okay, Mayor. Well, one of the things that happened when we first began this, it was just a group of churches that had originally got together. And then when the city got involved, what we've seen progressively every year is we have more churches involved. I think last year at the celebration we had about 11 churches involved. One exciting thing is we had our first business donation last year, and by Unisource Gas, and that was exciting that we could have, you know, businesses beginning to donate, and they donated a considerable sum, and so we've seen the participation grow every year. We've seen the money that has come in grow every year, and one of the aspects is as the fast has grown, so has the distribution of funds. And if you don't mind, I'd just like to share one story. Last year, I was fortunate enough to be one of the ones that got to distribute the funds, and we had gone to one of the places in the community, and they were in a meeting, and were called out of the meeting, the director, and said, well, there's a gentleman here from the Community Fast, and he has a donation. And when the director came out, they were in tears, and I said, you know, I didn't mean to bring bad news. She said, no. She said, we are in prayer about a financial need we have to meet today. And the Community Fast met that need that day. Wow. And that was an extraordinary, just a situation of this is what the Community Fast is about. Helping even, you know, desperate need or even just moments of need in the community where it makes a big difference.
That's great. Pastor Brown, what have you seen as far as among some of the different churches and people who have participated in the fast? How has it affected their lives?
Well, I represent the Christian Community Outreach. We help people in short-term crisis. They've been evicted, they have their utilities turned off, that sort of thing. And the funds that we receive have gone to preserve these people, to keep them in the place they're living, to provide for their utilities, etc. And oftentimes these are families that, particularly this time of year, become really stressed because with increased heating bills and the winter coming on, they can't stay abreast of all the bills that are before them. So it's been very helpful in that respect. But I think, Mr. Mayor, the greatest thing for me is that this community of Show Low in the White Mountains has an aspect to our history that sometimes gets shoved back because we're so busy with the busyness of keeping life going, and that's a religious aspect. We have 42 churches on this mountain, and all of us have a deep respect for Almighty God and how He cares for us and looks after us. And this care sometimes gets sidetracked because of social ideas and feelings, etc., but it's still there. And what the fast has done is the fast is saying, look, as individuals, we have an opportunity to be thankful and to give. And I think every heart has a giving aspect to it. And so it doesn't matter if people are involved in churches or if they're involved in the community in the different aspects of serving in the community. They have a chance to give a part of themselves and to feel that they've done something to help the general community. And that's the feeling that's increased. So it doesn't matter, these people we help, whether we're buying jackets for kids in the school, and this happens, that don't have them for Christmas, or we're helping somebody stay in their rental because we're paying their rent, they still are helping people, and that's the community aspect of it.
I think it really is. When we sit here and we have, religious leaders from 3 separate organizations, you're sitting here with the mayor, but yet we're talking about what can we do to help the entire community.
Right.
And it doesn't really matter what religion we belong to or what faith base we have. It's still about how do we serve and do good for our community. President Williams shared a little bit about, you say that 100% of the funds, are locally. How is that possible? Because usually there's some administration costs. I know recently you guys filed for a 501c3, different things, but share with us a little bit about how that's 100% funded.
Sure. When the thought of the fast was first discussed, we thought it was very important when we're asking people to give something of themselves to bless others. We thought it was very important that they knew 100% of anything they're contributing is going to help families. And so there are some administrative costs along the way, but those are covered through donations separate than the fast. So there are some businesses, there are some individuals that have said, I know there's some administrative costs, I'll cover this much, or we'll take care of that expense, so that anyone in the community that donates, they know 100%. If they're contributing $1 or $10 or $100, they know all of it's going to help local families in need. And that's been a great blessing.
That's fantastic. And I think the follow-up after the first year, you instigated a celebration, because part of this, it comes at a great time between Christmas and end of Thanksgiving to the beginning of Christmas, kind of that season where we're thankful for everything, but then we also start celebrating and turning our thoughts a little bit more. What have you found with the celebration, Pastor Heckathorne, of how that's been held the last couple of years?
Mayor, I think the celebration is a great way to culminate what this community fast of compassion is about. In Scripture, Christ teaches the 2 great commandments of the New Testament, which are love God and love your neighbor. Well, I know a lot of people that tell me and say they love God, and I believe they do, but I think some people are still trying to figure out who their neighbor is. And I think what the community fast is saying is, you're my neighbor, you're my neighbor, you're my neighbor. Mm-hmm. And that's, I believe, what the Savior was saying there, that those that you live with are your neighbors. And so I think the celebration is saying, let's get together as friends and neighbors. And although we may meet different places on Sunday, and there's some people that don't even go to church that come to the celebration, we're saying we're neighbors and we care about those in our community. The Bible says that Christ was moved with compassion. True compassion moves you. In other words, I can look at a situation and say, well, I hope that works out, or I can look at a situation and say, I will help work that out. And the community fast is saying, we're moved with compassion and we actually do something. So that's what's exciting to me, is we come in and we celebrate everybody getting together as neighbors and saying there's a common unity here, that we all have a common thread of caring and having compassion for those that are less fortunate.
That's great. I think the story that they shared with us last year of the young boy who, for the first time, he got his very first pair of new shoes that were new to him. And new clothes, and he says, I feel good. I feel good. It changed him of how he feels and some of the things that are happening in his life. And so where can people donate? Pastor Brown, share with us where they're able to make their donations this year.
Okay, they can donate at any of the banks. They just have to say, I have a donation for the Community Fast of Compassion, and the banks are tuned into that. Or they can donate at City Hall. And those donations then will be added together, and then these funds will be distributed to the different helping organizations in the schools, all the schools.
Okay. And also they can donate right here at City Hall as well.
Right.
And that's another place that we can do. You know, through the fast and through giving up things that we give up, does it change us internally? Is that kind of the purpose, President Williams?
You know, it's interesting because it seems to me, we live in a time where we tend to focus on what we have different from someone. We have a different political persuasion, or we root for a different sports team, or we live in a different community, or we go to a different church and we look for ways to be different. But the community fast is all about choosing to find something in common. And we're neighbors here, and we can set aside differences that we have, and we can focus on what we have in common. I'll tell you, at the community fast celebration every year, a lot of the churches that participate in the fast choose to perform a musical number, and then the combined number at the end is an interfaith choir, which is really inspiring. Mr. Mayor, you give closing remarks, but in between each musical number is an accounting of where some of the monies went from the year previous, and some inspiring stories like the one you referenced. And I think that is one of the highlights for everyone that goes to the celebration, to hear the stories of how those funds were used. And it does change you. It makes you, it brings walls down, and it makes you realize just what a blessing we can be to each other if we choose to have a little compassion and find ways to serve shoulder to shoulder.
That's great. Let's just, we're about done here, but let's talk a little bit about when this fast is going to be this year, what week we have set aside, as well as when the celebration is.
Well, Mayor, I believe tonight you're going to make the proclamation, and make the proclamation for the city and the city council. And so the fast itself will be November 13th through the 19th. And you're going to make that proclamation tonight. The community will begin to see flyers go up and banners go up this week to remind people that the fast is starting on the 13th. And then our celebration will be November 27th. And that will be at the Shoal High School Auditorium at 6 p.m. that Sunday evening. So you're going to have a week of seeing the banners and the flyers as they get ready, and then the week of the 13th to the 19th. And a lot of people say, well, can I fast more than one meal? Absolutely. I know people that fast 3 days. And so and it's fasting in prayer.
Right.
And so it's whatever the Spirit leads you to do. But I know people that fast one meal. I know people that fast 3 days, 4 days. So it's something that you get to participate the way you're led to do that, and then give accordingly the way that you want to give. And we take an offering at our church for this fast, and then we take it to Chase Bank. And so there's lots of ways to give and get involved in this and be a part of this.
We also want to emphasize that people can give throughout the month. We emphasize 1 week where we can concentrate and focus, but they can give all the way up to Christmas if they want to. And we receive donations from people who have earnestly practiced prayer and fasting, donations from those people who are concerned and interested in the community, donations from businesses that like what we're doing in terms of helping one another. So it's very broad, Mr. Mayor, in terms of the time frame and what you can do. It's just that the proclamation and focus is on that week.
I think that's one of the greatest things, is if we could even get where we extended it to a year-round thing, because there's needs that are all the time.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
think that's one of the greatest things of living in Sholo, and still having the small community. And I think one of the things that I wanted to try to achieve as being mayor was, how do we bring more and more people together? That's one of the reasons why I said let's get on board with this too, because we are a whole community and we're working together. And when somebody's hungry or somebody doesn't have enough money to turn the lights on and things there, then we all hurt. And if we can't look at that person and say, hey, well, you have plenty, and let's share, I think that's one of the greatest blessings that we can do, is to continue to be part of that and have that faith base. I want to thank each one of you for what you've done and for this great cause that you do for our community, and where you continue to work hard and continue to make this the best ever. And we just ask for our citizens out there that the only way we make it better is for you to do even more and share with more people. I think we've had 550 people at the celebration. It still has plenty of room to grow. May we challenge the community to turn out to fill that auditorium completely, and it would be really a great blessing. So we hope to see everybody again. The fast November 13th to the 19th, and the celebration is November 27th at the auditorium.
And
Thanks.
Mayor, thank you, because your leadership and the leadership and support of the City Council has been instrumental and key in helping this grow.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
We appreciate that.
Thanks for being here
Thank
today.
you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Stay tuned for the next segment of Inside City Hall, where we will have Rick Austin and Ryan Hall from Shoalo Public Works talking about the upcoming snow season. Welcome back to Inside City Hall. Our next guests are Rick Austin and Ryan Hall from the Public Works Department. Welcome, Rick.
Thank you, sir.
Ryan,
Thank you, sir.
good to have you guys back on our show today. You know, it's going to snow this winter for sure, right?
We're praying for it sometime.
We got to have some snow. And in the event that we do, we want to make sure the public knows what our snow plan is as far as the snow removal, some of the changes that we've made this year going forward, and what's going to be required of the citizens, because they play a big part in what they do the night before whenever there's snow or during the snow season, so that we can have our streets clean. Why don't you just kind of share with us the different segments that we have as far as our snow removal, Rick? Or Ryan, whoever wants to start and go.
You want to take this? I can.
Go ahead.
We have 3 levels, actually. I'm 4 levels. The first 3 is most important because we've been anywhere from level 1 is a ½ inch of snow to 2 inches of snow. That's when we're out assessing streets. It's important when we're out looking at the streets to make sure that vehicles and everything are out of the way, so that when we do start plowing, we're not having to work around your vehicles for a safety factor. In level 2, we got 2 to 3 inches of snow. This is getting pretty serious, where we're calling in additional resources. Again, vehicles in the road really messes with our plan of operation, and we won't come down your street at that level because it's just too hard to see a vehicle when snow's flying off the end of the plow.
Right.
Level 3 is 3 inches or more, and we have a full call out at that point. We're clearing main arteries, and we're cleaning bus stops, school routes, and stuff like that. And then we'll eventually get into your private, or not, the smaller streets.
Now we know we don't got to clear bus routes because they don't go after 2 inches. They cancel school. No.
Right.
No, but I get-
But we make sure they're open so they're
They
not
are.
waiting on us. So,
Sure.
but that's basically the levels we look at, and at level 3 we're working 12 hours a day until the snow's cleared. So we have two shifts, A shift and B shift, and they're A shift to clear for 12 hours and B shift to clear while A shift's resting.
And that can get
So-
really, really challenging for you guys, especially if it's a prolonged storm with a lot of moisture coming or something there that you guys can work around that clock. It can be 2 or 3 days. And some storms, if we go back to some like we've had in the past too,
Correct.
on that side. New equipment, Ryan, do we have any new equipment on the road this year that we didn't have?
We have some new pickups that we've replaced with some of our older ones, and and we have a new motor grader that we're going to use for sidewalks and help clean streets with that.
Okay, that will be helpful.
Yep.
Let's talk a little bit about berms. If we have a snow berm and maybe I'm not able to go out there, maybe I have a disability or I'm on oxygen or there's some physical reason that I can't clear that berm, is there a way that I can have my berm cleared?
Yes, sir. On our website, we have you get an application, you take it to your physician, and they'll fill it out for you, and then you get it back to us, and we put you on a list. And once the storm is subsided and we've got all the streets cleared, then we'll go through and remove the berm in the front of your driveway. We won't come out and clean your whole driveway, just the berm that we make with our plows.
Right. So one of those things, it does require you going to the doctor. So anybody that's in that situation, they need to start acting now, get that ahead of time, and then submit that into the city, and so they will be able to have that cleared. And like you said, we won't do that until 100% the storm's over and the streets are cleared.
Yeah, and patience is, really big in this, because we do have an entire city to open up, and we have people calling just as soon as we drive by their house, they want their berms open. We just can't do it. We've got to get the transportation, the flow of the city moving.
Right.
So have patience with us. We will be back if you're on that list.
And I think one of the things that people need to realize is if you park on the street, you could have your whole neighborhood mad at you.
Yeah.
Because we're not going to come up and knock on your door and say, can you please move your truck? I mean, it's just, if you guys don't have time to start, targeting everybody and saying, get your truck out of the way.
Right. And, well, we've changed that up a little bit on some of the more offenders, for lack of a better word. I have been getting the addresses from our snowplow drivers, and I will go and knock on the door, but not in the middle of the night.
Right.
I will leave a door hanger now. So we've kind of upgraded that a little bit, and then the next step is to call the police and have them towed.
Have them towed
So
out
we
of the
can
way.
get it in
So
there.
there are measures there of
Yeah,
making it happen.
We're trying to make it a little bit better on the citizen, make them a little bit more aware.
Okay. Now, one of the things that we've had problems in the past is mailbox damage. Let's talk a little bit about what happens when there's a damaged mailbox.
Well, when there's myself or Rick will come out and we'll assess the damage, and if we deem that it was caused by our snowplow, then it will be covered up to $100, and that's in our right-of-way. We won't cover the fancy mailbox. If you have a fancy mailbox, we only cover up to $100.
Okay.
And either we will do the work, or if the citizens want to do the work, we will reimburse them up to $100.
Okay. So that's something that's new, but I think it came to a point where, one, we kind of have the right-of-way is accessible for the city. It needs to be, although it's on your property, it's still the right-of-way. Although the post office, they won't deliver unless the mailbox is in the right-of-way.
Correct.
And so the average cost of a mailbox is $100. Or lower than that. Actually,
lower.
it's less than that, but
Less.
we'll spend up to $100. Okay.
Yeah, and we are taking measures. We go out and videotape our snow routes, and we, see if the damage is already there. And if your damage is already done and we have it on tape, we will deny the claim.
Right.
But you do have to go through and make a formal claim if you want to do it yourself.
Yeah, because there have been a couple of really nice mailboxes that I know in the past, but the people chose to put those in the right of way, and we don't like them to do that. They still have that right, but if they do, if it is damaged, it becomes there, because it's also safety for the plow people as well.
Absolutely.
You
And it isn't that the plow hits the box, it's the berm of snow. That snow comes off of that plow at a pretty high rate of speed, and unfortunately, we can't do much about that.
Okay.
So,
Now talk a little bit about when cindering the roads and things. When do they get cindered? Because one of the things that people are concerned about is a lot of cinders. We get broken windshields. We get those things. So tell us why we cinder those intersections.
Well, it helps. It helps the cars stop at the stop signs and get going again. And we usually do that at, like I said, level 1 is ½ inch. That's when we get our cinder trucks and our de-icer out. And we'll monitor all the hills, intersections, curves. And yeah, we try not to put too much down, but we get a lot of calls for cinder, so.
Right. So those are just safety measures.
Safety
It
measures.
makes everybody a little bit safer. Yes, it makes the streets dirty in front of your house in some cases, but it's all about safety, and that's what's
Safety.
most important when we do have these storms.
yes, sir.
Do we have, what are some things that homeowners can do, or people who are out driving, to help them have better traction or be able to move their cars any better in the snow?
Be a little bit more snow conscious. You're not going to stop on a dime in the snow. A lot of people drive like they do during the summer, and you just can't do that up here. You got to be a little bit slower, a little bit more patient, and just kind of gauge, the distance that you're going to have to stop, because it's actually quadrupled by the time you stop.
Right. And I think what people have to understand is, like you guys have shared, is patience. I mean, you wake up in the morning, you got 6 inches of snow out there, but yet you still want to be the first one to Walmart. And so getting the streets up there is difficult. Plus, when you get to Walmart, more than likely their driveway or their parking lot still may not be clean. And so we have a lot of people who fall and hurt themselves during that time frame when really they could have gone tomorrow or the next day and still got what they needed so badly. Usually there's things that we can help people getting out.
Don't follow our snow plows. It's a bad idea all the way around, especially with the windshield issue, and because we do throw senders behind our snow plows, and we end up with a lot of complaints. Well, you hit our car. Well,
That's
you're
great.
50 feet behind us. You know, you gotta give us some room.
How many pieces of equipment do we have that we'll be using for snow removal?
We have 14 pieces of equipment. We have 3 10-wheel trucks with spreaders, and we have 2 6-wheel trucks with spreaders, 3 loaders, and 6 pickups.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, you know, we hope we get a lot of snow. We hope you guys are able to do a lot. We appreciate what you do. Is there anything else you want to share with the public here?
The one thing I'll share is when you're out cleaning your driveway, shoveling the snow out of your driveway, you know, if you put it in the street, it's going to come back in your driveway. You know, you got to shovel it off into your yard. When we're plowing those streets, you know, we got to get it out of the street. And unfortunately, it does end up in the driveway, but you know, if it helps you, just throw it in your yard instead of back out in the street.
Okay.
And be patient. That's the big thing. We'll be there. We're out there working.
Right.
We just have a lot to cover.
Well, thanks so much for what you do. It's one of those things that our community, we do clear the streets, and that isn't one of the things that you find all over the United States, especially where there's snow. I've been to Utah, I've been to Idaho, and it just piles up. And so we just appreciate what you do. Thanks so much for being with us today,
Thank
Ryan.
you, Mayor.
Rick?
Thank you,
Appreciate
sir.
it. Thank you for joining us on Inside City Hall today. Have a great day.